Well, if you're anything like me and you studied GCSE science when you were younger, but made a complete fool of yourselves by getting 2 E's and then later rectifying it with a degree in a scientific subject, but still needing a primer for astronomy, this is the book for you. It's quite a short book, and I really recommend it because it's got an entire primer on the Big Bang, the formation of the stars and the planets and the solar system. And although it delves into your quarks and your quasars and your quantum physics, it's a really easy read to get your head around, and it's an excellent primer. So if ever you feel the need to just do a bit of brushing up and you didn't pay attention at school like I didn't, and you need a good primer, this is it. Eagle-eyed viewers may notice that it's been written by Chris Lintott, Brian May, and sadly the departed Patrick Moore, who's very sorely missed. And I think it's this collaboration that allows it to read so well, because you've got a person who did the Sky at Night for many years, making things accessible for everybody. You've got Brian May, and brings to the table his PhD, who's signed this copy for me. And you could say we've got contrasting hairstyles. And then of course you've got Chris Lintott, ex-Sky at Night presenter. So you've got the holy trinity of brilliant authors for this book. Highly recommended. This book is absolutely great because, number one, it's on an iPad, and number two, you can read it at bedtime, not worrying about the lights. It is the 100 best astrophotography targets. What I really love about this is it's from the Patrick Moore Astronomy series. And the book goes through each month and gives you a list of targets. It gives you imaging tips. It tells you whether you need to set your telescope up ready for LRGB imaging or narrowband imaging. And although some of the images inside it have got a little bit dated now and were taken a good 15-20 years ago, the information contained within it is still absolutely valid today. And if you're wondering what is up in the sky and what is available to you, this is the book that you need. Other things I like about this book is that it gives you the target sizes in arc minutes, and it tells you how large it is as an object, so you know whether your telescope will fit it in the view or not. It also rather helpfully tells you whether the image target is known by a different name, such as M31 and the Andromeda Galaxy. As well as all of the usual suspects to people who've done astronomy for a couple of years, there are actually some rare targets in there as well. This next one's a really interesting one, and although it doesn't help with anything imaging wise, it's a real eye-opener. I had the great privilege of meeting Alan Chapman at Astrofest, as he was a regular for 25 years. And if you've ever been to Astrofest, you know this is a man who knows his science history. Not only that, he can hold an entire audience without PowerPoint. He's so interesting to listen to, and he knows his stuff. What I really like about this book is that it delves into all the history of all the characters that we've come to know and love over the years, Galileo and Copernicus, and interestingly the Church, and it does give a really interesting insight. I had no idea that a person like Galileo could be quite difficult, and that a lot of his run-ins were not necessarily about religious things, but about upsetting people. It's also a book that redresses balance, I think, in terms of the historical accuracy of what we've come to sometimes believe and take for face value without actually looking at the evidence basis. There are plenty of characters to delve into. Copernicus, Galileo, you've got Tycho Brahe's in there, Kepler's in there. You've even got some interesting stories from a British perspective, such characters as Thomas Harriot from Wales. So if you want to know more about who he is, read this book. Next up, turn left at Orion. You can see the size of this is absolutely huge, and it's not really meant to be read cover to cover. It's one of 2 books in this list that are not meant to be read from cover to cover. It is meant to be placed down on a table. You'll notice this spine is absolutely fantastic because it keeps the book completely flat on a table. It goes through seasonal targets throughout the year, giving plenty of information in terms of what you will see from a small telescope, but also what you'll see through a Dobsonian. Most of it is about visual observing. It's not actually a book really about astrophotography, so it's perfect for the beginner. It's a book that you can take outside and begin to learn the night skies and understand what you can see from binoculars or a small telescope or even a Dobsonian if you have one. What's really helpful about the book is that it covers things by constellations. So for example, I'm at a page now where I can see in Cygnus, and then you've got a whole load of targets in the Cygnus region, such as NGC 6826 or the Blinking Planetary Nebula, and it will catalogue through each constellation as you can see it. This one is an absolute must if you want to get into astrophotography, in my opinion. It's the fairly famous Charles Bracken Astro Imaging Primer. It doesn't really have particularly a catchy name, sorry Charles, it doesn't, but the Deep Sky Imaging Primer. And a primer, if you think of paint, you put your primer on before you put your gloss on. That's exactly what this book does. The primer level of it helps you to understand how an image sensor works. What is it that happens when a camera takes an image? What is noise? And actually all the different kinds of noise, not just one form of noise. It goes into shot noise, it goes into sensor noise. It really helps you understand. And actually in a very readable way. You'd think me saying some of those things, and if you're not interested in the actual inner workings of something like that, could be quite boring sounding, but it really isn't. It's immensely readable. Next up is the Astrophotography Manual, and I can't say enough, thank you, Chris Woodhouse. This book is incredible, and what Chris does not know about astrophotography is not worth knowing. Again, another quite pricey book, I believe again over £40, but it's incredibly thick, and it is packed full of absolutely incredible information. What Chris doesn't know is not worth knowing. It's highly comprehensive as a manual. It's a book that goes through choosing equipment and image setup and all kinds of useful bits of information before you even start to image, and it's very comprehensive. The book then moves on to using Pixinsight, and it's not the easiest program to learn to use, but Chris gets you started and talks about image calibration, and it also talks about kind of what is happening behind the scenes, so you really understand the processes that you're using. Later on in the book, there's also some really helpful workflows, and Chris takes us through some targets that he's taken and how he processed them and what processes he used. And finally, inside Pixinsight, and this is also on its third edition, I believe. This was the first edition, and Warren Keller, who's a fantastic imager, wrote it. Warren, in my early days of learning Pixinsight, did online tutorials and video tutorials, and I use these quite often to help me get started. His book is not meant to be read cover to cover. That would be rather like picking up the phone book and reading from the start to the end, but it's more as a reference book, and it's really helpful. The Pixinsight team really do like to go to town on their names. Anybody wondering what a wavefront aperture was? Me neither. If you're wondering what a dial or a setting does in Pixinsight, and I know a lot of us ignore those kinds of things, but this book will actually explain that. You're able to find out what dial and what switch does what in Pixinsight, so it can be helpful, and even if you're just curious, this is the book that will help you with those things. I'd also recommend searching out Warren Keller's website and going on there to find out more resources. Hey Audrey, it says here that you were raised by Chinese imperial palaces to be noble dogs and to be put at the feet of emperors as bed warmers. You're basically a glorified hot water bottle. It also says that you're supposed to be, or I'm supposed to be put to death if anyone is found with you outside of one of the imperial palaces. I think it's probably time to go.